All right, today's video is just a rant, an extended rant about producers I like. I was gonna do a list style, it's probably gonna be called top 10, but in no way this a top 10 list. The first one that comes to mind is Trent Reznor, I guess. As problematic as he is, we'll get into that later. His soundscape really changed the way for weird music being like popular, and industrial music and industrial rock, obviously, and he has to have some credit there. Unfortunately, he's like a racist, so you hate to see that. But he also thought he was God. You don't just name your band that without thinking you're really highly of yourself. So I think he falls into the crazy genius category. Like, he really did some beautiful stuff on a lot of the work under Nine Inch Nails, but he just doesn't cross the boundary into being like that much. Like, there was plenty of ideas there, and he's really just pulling from a bunch of different experimental stuff, but for him to combine it in that way was very innovative. So I'm gonna go with Trent Reznor first off. Andy Moran, to lead into that, the producer behind Death Grips. You have to speak about Zach Hill too, obviously. Like, he's a big influence on the way the sound of Death Grips is. But Andy Moran pieces everything together, and I think that he's deserves more credit. You don't really see him talked about as much as MC Ride or anything, when Ride's lyricism is actually pretty vague, and all things considered. Like, obviously he's talking about shit, but it's kind of less about what he's actually saying and more about like the meaning behind the kind of syllables put together. Like, it's just what works best. So I don't know if Ride's like actually the star in all this. I think that he's an important part of Death Grips. We won't get into a Death Grips rant here though, okay? We're talking about the music, and Andy Moran is great. And obviously industrial music is a big, since we're in the whole industrial topic, I'll just speak on Sophie now. I love Sophie. Probably my number one producer, if not top like 3. Sophie, she, R.I.P., she gone too soon. She needs more credit. Her work on Big Fish Theory is great. The Kendrick Lamar feature on there. Her work with Charlie XCX is great. Obviously, An Oil of Pearls Every On Insides or whatever. Her album, you can't not listen to Immaterial and be grooving to it. Like, it's, I don't know. She was in the industry for a long time, and essentially built all her noises out of sine waves, and really knew how to manipulate frequencies like no one else in the industry has to, or maybe will ever since. Like, you got to get in on that. People need to be more tapped into her processes, and I wish there was more out. I wish there could be more out. To pivot off of Sophie, we'll go to something completely different. We're gonna have to go to Phil Spector here. Phil Spector, obviously, his work with the Beach Boys and the Beatles and blah blah blah. He had a lot, and he shot his wife, in 2002 and died in 2021, I think, in prison. But he obviously completely redesigned the way we listen to music, essentially, as far as stereo mixing goes. His mixes are unbelievable to what like the previous sound like recordings were. Recordings before Phil Spector just didn't hit like the way his kind of did as far as the scene goes, when you consider everything going on in that time. But there were plenty of great producers, and plenty of great producers that were able to replicate him as well. And there's a lot more ideas to come out of them, obviously, than just Phil Spector. But you really do have to give credit there. Another producer I want to give, you know what, we'll go to another hardball switch. We'll go to Metro Boomin. Metro Boomin is surprisingly experimental. If you listen to something like I Serve the Bass, you know, he's sampling like a Bit Crush scream and just like two synth noises, you know. It's super pulled back, and that came out in like 2012, 2013, or maybe DS2 off. That's Future. I'm not as too tapped into them, but one of the most influential songs that come out of hip hop, I'd say. Unfortunately, from another problematic artist, but having Metro Boomin's touch is Father Stretch My Hands Part 1. You know, there's a reason why it hit the hip hop scene like it did. I think that as far as Kanye's whole discography, I don't think he's anywhere near the producer line. I think Metro Boomin, his touch really elevated that track to make it how it hit the scene. Like, you know, I don't think that it would have been the same without him. I think that, you know, there's a reason why Part 2 is Panda. Yeah, it's just a remix of Panda with the sample flipped over it, you know. I don't think that he really knew what to do with all that as much as Metro did. But I wasn't in the room. I couldn't be that. Maybe it was already done and bro just wanted the tag. That was all he wanted. And maybe I should be giving him more credit there. But I gotta believe that for it to be like as prolific as it is in the music space, you know, you hear it on a regular basis. For everything that's happened with Kanye, you still hear that song on a regular basis, and I think that's just a testament to how good it is. You know what? I do want to talk about another producer X artist out right now is Two Hollis. Two Hollis has very, very, very interesting beats, and you can say he makes Rocket League music. Some of it is Rocket League music, but a lot of it is not. Like, you can't tell me Teenage Soldier or I Do would be anywhere in the Rocket League playlist, you know. So Two Hollis, to have these abilities, you gotta wonder where it comes from. It's nepotism. He is fairly affluent, but I don't necessarily think that means like anything that poorly. And you know, there's the whole thing with his mom being in the music industry and having like connections and getting him on tours and stuff. Like his fame is a little bit manufactured, but it's not necessarily for a bad reason. Like, he is cool, he is, you know, making good music, he's making interesting music. I appreciate it. You know, you can't say that like that kind of nepotism isn't like for all the other nepotism that goes on. You know, you can't. Whatever his experience is still pretty reflective of facing some kind of some kind of like trife. You know, it's some kind of trife because he is obviously gay, and he speaks on Gold about like in the backseat feel disgusting, you know, like, so, you know, there's the whole like homophobia there, and he's like fucking with the DL nigga. But Two Hollis, nonetheless, has used his abilities for good, and that's all I can appreciate, is that he is gonna go somewhere with the art that he's making and do like crazy shit with it in the future. Jane Remover is probably the next producer I'm gonna talk about. As far as this, speaking on artist producer, Jane Remover is like the future of music now. You gotta listen to Jane Remover if you're into anything soundscapey, or like, I don't know, all her new stuff coming out, like JR, I love that track. Magic I Want You, That shit's great. And I mean, I listened to Teen Week back in the day. I still listen to 52 Blue Mondays, like on a regular basis, you know. But I kind of miss some of the songs on there, but I completely understand why they're gone. They're not like up to standard as anything off Frality. Frality is the #1 hyperpop album. If you're into anything like that, you have to check it out. If you haven't already seen that, you know, you gotta be into that. I'll probably make an extended video on that, maybe in the future, but I don't know. Jane Remover, her abilities are just untold. Soon, you know, there's gonna be a crazy, like, crazy development in the camp with the next album. I think with how hard the energy is hitting on tracks like JR, and how riffy the like R&B elements and stuff, like the singles. With this whole rock album she just put out under Venturing, you know, it's a separate project. It's you gotta assume that this is the it time. Like, this is the Cook season, you know. Cook season. I'm trying to think of more old producers, but you don't really care about that anyway. We'll wrap up the video here. Maybe I'll speak on some more producers in the future. But as far as music production goes, you know, what I take from these people is that, like, anything can be done with music in all capacities. You have to always have an open mind, and you should be developing your art every way you can. So yeah, if you want to make music, go out there and do it, because you can. You can do it with anything. That's the moral of the story here. Have a good night.